All right, so Adam Silver ended up getting on the NBC News, and he was talking about the CBA negotiation that's going on between, of course, the owners and the players, and he absolutely said something that pissed the WNBPA off. All right, they ended up taking shots at him, which I will show y'all that after this. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what he had to say.
Okay, so Adam Silver just dropped a bomb that nobody expected, and the WNBPA, they completely lost it. But here's what's actually insane. What he said exposes the real reason this entire negotiation is falling apart. And by the end of this video, you're gonna understand why there might not be a WNBA in 2026. I'm not exaggerating. This is way bigger than anyone realizes. So Adam goes on NBC News, right? And he's talking about the CBA negotiations. Seems normal. But then he says something that completely changes everything. Listen to how he words this.
Yes, I mean, I think the share isn't the right way to look at it because there's so much more revenue in the NBA. I think you should look at it in absolute numbers in terms of what they're making, and they are going to get a big increase in this cycle of collective bargaining, and they deserve it.
So the main part that I want us to pay attention to is this first part, okay? It's really quick. This clip was really quick, but we need to pay attention to what he said right here.
NBA? Yes, I mean, I think the share isn't the right way.
Did you catch that? The share isn't the right way to look at it. That one sentence just revealed the entire strategy. Because here's what most people don't understand. When Adam says don't look at shares, he's basically saying the players will never get what they're asking for. Ever. And get this. The WNBPA immediately clapped back with an Instagram story that said, "Don't want to share Adam Silver," with a question mark. They're calling him out publicly. This is getting wild, but here's the kicker. Adam's not wrong, and I'll explain exactly why in just a second. First, you gotta understand the math that nobody's talking about. The players want a revenue split like the NBA. Sounds fair, right? But check out what happens when you actually run the numbers.
And by the way, it's not even the owners, the players. So the players get 50% of the money. Where does the rest of the money go? And this is revenue, not profit, not 50% of profits. They want 50% of revenue. So the WNBA costs, let's just make the maths easy. Let's just say it costs 100 million to run the WNBA. It doesn't, it costs way more. When it take into
Okay, so that just broke down the entire problem. If the league brings in 100 million and costs 100 million to run, and players get 50 million asked, every single owner loses money. It's a guaranteed loss. No investor on earth accepts that deal. But here's what's even crazier. Brunus, the WNBA, isn't structured like the NBA. The NBA owns 100% of their revenue. The WNBA, they don't even own half of what's coming in. There are third-party investors. There's the NBA itself bailing them out. It's this complicated web where the actual WNBA teams are minority owners in their own league. So when players demand 50% of revenue, they're asking for something that literally can't exist in the current structure. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Players that are in high positions that benefit from the league not existing. There are players that benefit from the league not existing. And by the way, we know these players that are in the PA have basically diplomatic immunity from getting fired. If Unrivaled goes 5v5, they're going to make a little more money. But you want to know who's not going to make more money? The 60.
Zero professionalism from the WNBPA. That's a strong statement. But look at what he's pointing to. They leaked their own awards out of spite for Caitlin Clark. They demanded investigations for things that didn't happen. They had to delete posts because they got bullied by their own players. And here's what nobody's connecting. Some of the players in leadership positions actually benefit if the WNBA shuts down. Think about that for a second. If Unrivaled goes 5-on-5, certain players make more money. But you know who doesn't? The 60 to 70 players on minimum contracts who lose everything. This is where the psychology gets really dark.
Listen closely to what he said here. We got to dial in right here. He's speaking really fast. Let's listen to this next part.
The NBA, I think you should look at it in absolute numbers in terms of what they're making, and
I think you should look at absolute numbers in terms of what they're making. Because this could be a big increase, right? We don't see in their proposal. The max going from 200,000 to 850,000. That's a big increase. That's a big increase, right? the minimum being over.
We're not trying to get y'all this share money. He's basically admitting it. They're gonna find ways to increase salaries through efficiency, maybe cut costs here and there, get rid of some expenses. But that share percentage, it's staying exactly where it is. And this makes you wonder, was the terrible officiating last season part of budget cuts so they could put more money in players' pockets? Were they already making moves to increase salaries without touching that revenue split? But here's the thing that's driving the players absolutely crazy.
I cannot believe that we are seeing this type of thing. And look, I think the players should make a lot more money. I think apparently somebody like who knows the WNBA finance really well is like, even if the players got 80% of their merch, and they got like a percentage of ticket revenue, which they actually get none of right now, but it's like, even if you give them 80% of their merch, apparently the total still goes to about only just over $1 million, and they're not going to do.
So they're refusing to do a salary cap with set increases. They want it tied to revenue so it fluctuates every year, which means every player would only sign one-year deals because nobody knows what the cap will be next season. The entire league becomes unstable. And get this, even if you gave players 80% of their merch and a percentage of ticket revenue, which they currently get 0 of, the total only goes to about $1 million more. That's it. The money literally doesn't exist in the amounts they're demanding. But here's where this gets really uncomfortable to talk about.
That's coming in. Y'all don't even own half of what's coming into your league. So that 9% might have to stay there the way that he's talking because of how they're falling short already on making enough money to pay for how much the league costs to run, right? So that 9% might have to stay there. I don't know. That's the way he's talking. He's like, maybe not look at it as far as shares. Now, to me, it sounds like he's saying we don't necessarily want to increase that share number. We're just going to get a little bit more efficient here and there within the business.
He just said it. They might be using the WNBA as a write-off, tax breaks for losing money, which means the owners might actually benefit more from the league not being profitable. Think about the incentive structure that creates. If you can get tax benefits from running a league at a loss, and you're also getting positive PR for supporting women's basketball, why would you ever agree to a deal that guarantees you lose even more money? You wouldn't. It doesn't make business sense. And this is exactly why the players are so frustrated, because from their perspective, they're watching the league grow. They're seeing Caitlin Clark sell out arenas, and they're thinking, where's all this money going? But here's what they're missing.
Where if the revenue split happens, it is essentially a guarantee the owners lose money, and there's no scenario where that's ever going to happen. And I think the players are like, there will never be a situation where they budge on the revenue split. There won't be. If there's no 2026 season, there's not going to be a 2027 season, there's not going to be a 2028 season. I think an argument could be made that it is beneficial that the whole league shuts down, and it allows these players to start fresh.
The NBA are minority owners who bailed out the WNBA. They're not just investors in a team, they're investors keeping the entire league alive. And those third-party investors who just came in, they own pieces of the league structure itself, not individual teams. So when players demand 50%, they're not just asking owners to take less. They're asking the NBA to take less. They're asking outside investors to take less. And none of those groups have any incentive to agree to that. This is classic negotiation psychology. The players think they have leverage because of the momentum from last season. But do they really? Check this out.
Silver coming in and talking his talk. He was going to settle everything. I thought he was going to fix everything. I called him Thanos to fix it. Man, he talking just like Kathy. He talking just like Kathy, man. He like, look, we not trying to get y'all this share money. We're going to find a way to get those increases going, right? Y'all going to make a little bit of more money, but y'all not going to get any more of this share. I'm sorry. We're not looking at it as shares because y'all not making a profit. Y'all not making close to as much as the NBA is making. So, nah, we not.
Even with Caitlin Clark going crazy, she's not even enough to save the league. That's the brutal truth nobody wants to say out loud. Yes, she brought incredible attention. Yes, ratings went up. But one player meh. Even a generational talent can't fix the fundamental business structure problem. And here's what makes this even more complicated. Unrivaled exists now. There's Project B coming with billions in backing. These leagues are owned completely differently. The investors in those leagues are majority owners, sometimes 100% owners. They're not dealing with the weird split structure the WNBA has. But here's the massive problem with Unrivaled that everyone keeps ignoring.
They could have done it. They could have added 24 more players, got to like, what, 60 instead of 44, added 16 more players, made it 5v5 with 10 players per team, and the league becomes infinitely better. But they're so stuck on gimmick basketball that's not real basketball that they've screwed it. Like, I think if Unrivaled was 5v5, I think a lot of other players would be playing. I think Caitlin Clark plays with 5v5.
If Unrivaled wasn't gimmick basketball, I'd be all for it. 3-on-3, that's the issue. Because if Unrivaled was 5-on-5, this would be a completely different conversation. Caitlin Clark would probably play. A'ja Wilson would probably play, especially during a lockout. Instead, they added 2 more teams instead of adding 4 more players per team to go 5-on-5. They could have had 60 players instead of 44. They could have made it real basketball, but they're so stuck on this 3-on-3 concept that they've limited their own growth. And this creates an impossible situation for WNBA players.
You can see with these WNBPA posts, I think they might actually be half pushing to shut down the league. And I don't know if that's the worst thing in the world. Because at the end of the day, I think if I would be looking at that option way more favorably if Unrivaled was not gimmick basketball. If Unrivaled was just 5v5, if instead of adding 2 more teams to Unrivaled, they added 4 more players per team, they could have done it.
So structurally, a new league where players are dealing directly with investors who own 100% would be way better long term. The growth potential is there. They wouldn't be dealing with the NBA's weird bailout structure. It's cleaner, but only if it's real basketball. Only if it's 5-on-5, because right now, the momentum from Caitlin Clark's rookie season, from the playoff ratings, from all that attention, it's never coming back if there's no 2026 season. This is the peak. This is the moment, and they're about to lose it. Here's what's really happening behind the scenes.
Give them an ultimatum. Like, this reminds me of the "we call BS" thing. Like, there is zero, and I mean zero, professionalism from the WNBPA, and there hasn't been for years. Like, they've leaked their own awards out of spite for Caitlin Clark. They've leaked their own awards out of spite for a player that they're meant to represent. They have given credit, like, they have basically demanded the WNBA start an investigation, which they have, and basically called out the league for not punishing people for something that didn't happen, for not punishing a team.
They leaked their own awards out of spite. They demanded investigations for things that didn't happen. They got bullied into deleting posts. This is the organization negotiating for a revenue split. And here's the psychology: when you're negotiating from emotion instead of strategy, you lose. Every time. The owners are looking at spreadsheets and business models. The players' union is posting Instagram stories calling out Adam Silver. These are not the same energy levels, but there's something even deeper going on here that connects everything.
To look at it, because there's so much more revenue in the NBA. I think
he's talking really fast right there. He said, I think share is the wrong way to look at it, because there's so much more money being made in the NBA. And this is the problem, okay? This is the problem that is going on in the CBA negotiation. You can't increase that number to half like the NBA, because there are so many other hands in the cookie jar, fam. Like I stated in the last video.
Their share can't go up unless the other 2 shares go down. That's the entire equation. The NBA's share has to drop, or the third-party investor's share has to drop, and neither is happening. So Adam's strategy is genius, actually. He's saying, we'll increase the absolute dollar amounts through efficiency and growth, but we're not touching the percentage split. The max goes from 200K to 850K. The minimum becomes 300K. Those are real increases, significant ones. But the players don't want that. They want the structure to change. They want ownership of the revenue split. And that's where this becomes impossible to solve.
And everything, it becomes a hell of a lot less complicated. But at the end of the day, with the these players could 100% get paid more if there was an entire league 5v5 with structured league, not named the WNBA, because of the weird business deals, or not weird business deals WNBA made to stay afloat. The problem is,
I think they might actually be pushing to shut down the league. What if that's true? What if certain players in leadership positions genuinely believe everyone would be better off if the WNBA collapsed and they all went to new leagues with better structures? Because think about the incentives. If you're a star player who will get paid regardless, maybe a fresh start sounds good. But if you're player number 60 on a roster barely hanging on, you lose everything. Your career ends. And this is the breaking point nobody's talking about.
These players are shooting themselves in the foot because this momentum is never coming back. Because this league probably, if the 2026 season doesn't happen, the WNBA is done. It will never happen. It's done. I think every one of those owners that has built any of those facilities, I think they all have get out of jail free clauses, all those expansion teams. They can use their stuff.
If 2026 season doesn't happen, it will never happen. All those expansion teams with their new facilities, they all have exit clauses. They can repurpose those buildings for other sports. The owners have protection, but the players, they have nothing. No season means no paychecks. No momentum means Unrivaled becomes the only option, and it's 3-on-3 gimmick basketball that the stars won't even play. So what happens next? The deadline's approaching. The players want something the owners literally cannot give them without losing money on every dollar of revenue. The owners are offering massive salary increases, but won't touch the revenue split percentage, and both sides are dug in. The WNBA just had its biggest season ever. Caitlin Clark brought attention the league has never seen, and somehow that might be exactly why it all falls apart, because the players finally think they have leverage, but the business structure means that leverage doesn't actually exist. This isn't about fairness, it's about math, and the math doesn't work.